So I beat Tears of the Kingdom around a month and a half ago, and I'm finally getting around to reviewing it. That's mostly because I wanted to be able to sit on the game and really examine, is this a good Zelda game, or am I just caught up in the hype? Because a lot of the reviews you've been seeing are very, very positive, but now there seems to be this sort of wave of negativity around Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm here to tell you, wow, I sounded very hillbilly, but I'm here to tell you, is that true, or are people just being negative for the sake of being negative? I mean, happens all the time, am I right? So anyways, let's get started. So this game is insane. I beat it a while back, but I've had a hard time trying to find the words for this review. I mean, how do you review a game this huge and this crazy? Well, today that's what I'm attempting. So Tears of the Kingdom, as we all know, has been in development since 2019, and it's a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild in that same engine, which would obviously make you think, oh hey, this is probably an easy and relatively quick to just push this game out. Needless to say, it's now been 4 years since that announcement and 6 years since the release of Breath of the Wild itself. So yes, this game took a very long time, but that time wasn't spent in vain. Tears of the Kingdom is an amazing work of art. It improves on so many things originally introduced in Breath of the Wild, so what we're going to do for the purpose of a concise-ish review is break the game down into overworld, exploration, feel, combat, Zonai arm abilities, sages, dungeons, musics, graphics, and story. So let's get started right away with the world of Tears of the Kingdom. As I stated previously, Tears of the Kingdom reuses much of the world of Breath of the Wild. The thing is that I feel like it takes the overworld and completely makes it its own. So the main complaint I've seen about this game is that it really just reuses the world of Breath of the Wild without implementing anything new and original, and I don't think that can be further from the truth. Yes, we have that base overworld of Hyrule, but we have the sky, which is very different, and it's pretty fun, to be honest. I really enjoyed it, and yes, I think it is a bit underutilized. I wish that there was a bit more going on after you got off that original Sky Island to make you keep going back to the Sky Islands, because they do just turn it into shrines, but at the same time, there's a lot to explore, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but you have to trust me. There is a lot to explore. So when you're exploring in Breath of the Wild, the world feels very barren, and it was done on purpose because obviously it works with the story, but in Tears of the Kingdom, the world feels very much lived in, with all the people and NPCs all over the map. Each and every one has something to say to you, and more often than not, they have some sort of obscure and random side quest for you to do. There are tons of awesome NPC interactions, and it's really great to see how much more there seems to be able to do compared to that of Breath of the Wild. There are tons of bustling towns and small settlements that will keep you as busy as you like. Again, this is an open world with tons to do at every turn. There are some absolutely amazing shrines that will allow you to utilize Link's full moveset and conquer any puzzle in whatever way makes the most sense to you. This game essentially feels limitless because anything you think would work, you can try out, and more often than not, you can mess around with it so much that you can just basically force it to work in the game. Now, I've heard some complaints about the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom, but I haven't heard any really valid ones. I'm confused why people think that these are worse than Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, there was really just one main way to solve it, and it was the way that Nintendo intended for you to solve it. And you can still go through all of these shrines doing exactly what Nintendo probably intended you do to get through them, or you can throw a spring on the ground or rocket shield your way up to the finish. It's really up to you and however you want to conquer this, and I feel like that is what I like so much about this game. It's just the versatility of really just being able to do whatever you want. A lot of times with super popular games, that initial wave of excitement comes through and people love it, and then eventually there's this huge wave of negativity that will take over, and people will start to just devalue everything about the game, saying it doesn't make sense or the shrines don't work or what have you. And I think that's really just the time that we're in right now, because eventually we're going to pull out of that and it'll be up here again, and people will hopefully appreciate it for how great it is. And if you can't tell, I did really enjoy this game. I will concede that there are a few issues with it, but I really liked it for the most part. So let's continue with the review. So the way you unlock the map is also a ton of fun, and when you first start out, you are in the Sky Islands. The Sky Islands were great in the early game because they introduce you to brand new concepts only here in Tears of the Kingdom, and they are truly something special, at least early on. As you get into the rest of the world, like I said, the Sky Islands start to feel a bit underutilized, and sometimes they're just those floating platforms with the purpose of being a shrine or just allowing you to get some new gear. Anyway, they're still really fun additions to the world in my book, but I know that some people were a bit underwhelmed by the simplicity and how few fleshed out Sky Islands there were. Let me just say that the best Sky Island is that one that you start on, and no shade, because Regardless, as I already said, I did really like the Sky Islands and would love to see that concept further built upon in the future. Maybe they could just flesh a few of them out as much as the first island is, and then I'll be right on board. The exploration, like Breath of the Wild, felt endless, and this time I had all these different tools with the Zonai abilities, and we'll talk about those next, but those tools really allowed me to do whatever I could dream up. The abilities in question are amazing. Ascend Axe is a shortcut that allows you to go through any ceiling and makes climbing to the top of a mountain much easier. Ultra Hand allows you to essentially play God and just do whatever you set your mind to. You can make a myriad of different vehicles or other things like Korok torture devices or weapons and mechs of mass destruction. Truly, the possibilities are just endless with Ultra Hand. On top of this, Fuse is basically their solution to the complaint of weapon breaking, because yes, it is still prevalent in this game. However, the Fuse ability allows you to combine two different weapons or an item and a weapon, and this allows you to make some really crazy fun contraptions that do a ridiculous amount of damage. The last one is Recall, which allows you to rewind any object, because maybe you need to get to a ledge just out of reach. Well, in combination with Ultra Hand, Ascend, and Recall, you can elevate the platform where you need it, drop the platform, recall it, and ascend right through it. The way these abilities work together in tandem is truly what makes them so special. Yes, Cryonosis, the remote bombs, Magnesis, and Stasis from Breath of the Wild were very cool, but they're not as creative or frankly as fun as these ones in my opinion. The combat of Tears of the Kingdom is very similar to Breath of the Wild, and I'm sorry I'm comparing the two so much, but essentially it's the same. You have that flurry attack, your classic Zelda Z targeting, and that same feel-good combat. Everything feels smooth and just satisfying to do. Again, I love the use of gyro on the bow, and I really think that they have nailed the combat to a T. The feel of this game is so amazing and satisfying, because when you take an insanely difficult enemy down and then collect all of their monster parts and have them for the purpose that you can fuse them to any weapons, it's super fun. The gameplay loop is so addicting, and I think that's why there are so many people with hundreds of hours in this game who have still yet to complete it. So the main complaint I have with the game is the sages, and I think a lot of people talk about this. I honestly just didn't like them for the most part. In Breath of the Wild, you have some awesome sages with the power like the Gerudo Protection. You got Mipha's Grace, which is just OP, and you have a lot of really great abilities that just aren't present in Tears of the Kingdom. They sort of have their own version of them, but I feel like all of them, minus one that helps you glide, are just not anywhere near as polished or as good. I mean, of course you can turn off these stages and you don't even have to worry about them, but then you don't get the benefits of their powers, and it just feels like a huge step back from Breath of the Wild. So that's the one complaint I definitely will concede. But a lot of people also don't like the dungeons/temples, and you know what? I sort of think they are a huge step up from the Divine Beasts, and they're not perfect, but they are super fun. Even just the way that you trigger each dungeon is done a lot more traditionally. It's a lot more you talk to the NPC, then to this one, and then do a few other smaller missions, and then I find some random thing, and then bam, eventually you'll make your way to the fight. You know, I thought it was very cool the way that they handled it, because it makes me feel like they married both the style of do whatever you want, whenever you want from Breath of the Wild, and they brought back those classic Zelda-isms that everyone missed. Also, the boss battles in each of these are fantastic and so much fun and creative this time around. I'm just gonna say, in Breath of the Wild, the repetitive boss battle nature was obnoxious. I mean, you're always fighting some version of Ganon or what have you, and it just gets very samey. In Tears of the Kingdom, they completely changed up the bosses, and they're like so cool. I'm not going to give it away, but they're awesome. They make you think about everything and make you think about combat in such a different way that makes it fun and inventive and creative and just crazy. Like, it gets wild, and I don't understand the complaint that people don't like the bosses in this game. I think they have some really strong and fun bosses in this game, to be honest. The music here is also very similar to Breath of the Wild, with a few tracks even being reused, and the music in these games hasn't ever really been the focal point, but it's really great because I feel like it does match the atmosphere really well. The overall performance and graphics of this game were super impressive for the most part. The Switch is that old hardware, and it's evident. I mean, this is no easy game to run, but the Switch does it really valiantly. There are occasional frame drops and whatnot, especially when you're using Ultra Hand, but nothing so crazy that I was ever taken out of the experience. Lastly, the story. The story I felt was fantastic. I loved Ganon's whole thing, and the way you uncover the memories through finding these tears in the overworld was great, and I think it's really a huge step up from the memories of Breath of the Wild. Yes, it's not perfect, and some purists hate it, but I don't really care. I thought it was awesome and shocking and one of the more cool parts of the game. So anyways, should you check out Tears of the Kingdom, even if you've heard some of the negativity online or some of the super positive sides? With this more in the middle review, I think I can confidently say that if you enjoy Breath of the Wild, you are really going to enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. If you're someone who played that original NES Zelda and that is all you like, probably not going to love this one because it gets so out of hand and crazy, but it's a fun time, and I really think that everyone should just try it out. I get that it's $70, maybe wait if it goes on sale, but it's a really, really great game. I'm going to give it a solid 9.7 out of 10. It's a good game. Check it out. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Check out this video. It's a banger. It's a vibe. It's a good time. I rank all the Zelda games. Tears of the Kingdom isn't in it, but it'd be up there with Breath of the Wild had it been there. So, there's that. People don't like this video. I think it's hysterical.